I always thought I knew myself. I believed I had already tested the limits of what I could handle, emotionally, mentally, even in love. But life has a way of surprising us, of pulling us into places where we never imagined we'd go. My name is Caroline Miller, and this story isn't one I ever thought I'd tell. But maybe sharing it is my way of making sense of the choices I made, the mistakes that nearly tore my life apart, and the lessons I had to learn the hardest way possible. I grew up in a quiet town outside of Denver, Colorado. My parents raised me with traditional values: work hard, be honest, and always respect the commitments you make. I carried those lessons with me as I built a life of my own. By the time I was 28, I had a stable job at an interior design firm, a charming husband named Michael, and a circle of close friends I trusted like family. On the surface, it looked like I had everything a woman could want. But beneath that picture-perfect life, something restless lived inside me. Michael and I had been married for 5 years, and though our marriage was good, it wasn't extraordinary. He was reliable, kind, and deeply loyal, qualities any woman would treasure, but sometimes I wondered if reliability had become another word for routine. Our days blended together in patterns that rarely shifted. Wake up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, watch television, and sleep. Weekends were filled with errands, social gatherings with friends, or trips to see family. It was safe, it was steady, but it wasn't thrilling. And some part of me craved that thrill, the unknown, the risk. I didn't recognize that craving at first. It came disguised as curiosity. I'd scroll through social media and see people taking wild adventures, chasing dreams, making choices that seemed reckless, but exhilarating. Meanwhile, I was folding laundry and choosing between 2 nearly identical shades of beige paint for a client's dining room. Sometimes, late at night, when Michael was asleep beside me, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder, what are my limits? How far could I go before I lost myself or found myself? The thought haunted me for months. Then, one evening, an opportunity appeared in the most unexpected way. It was at a dinner party with friends. We were gathered at the home of my best friend, Jenna. She was bold and outspoken, the kind of woman who lived without apology. Sitting at her table, sipping wine, I felt like I was breathing in a different kind of air, wild, intoxicating, and free. That night, Jenna invited a couple I had never met before, Adam and Elise. They were magnetic from the moment they walked in. Adam had this easy charm that filled the room, and Elise carried herself with a quiet confidence that drew you in without effort. We spent the night talking, laughing, and sharing stories. They were travelers, explorers, always on the move. They told tales of climbing mountains, diving into oceans, and taking risks that made my pulse quicken just hearing about them. When the evening ended, I felt something stir inside me, a dangerous mix of envy and attraction. Over the next few weeks, we kept in touch. Group outings turned into long conversations, and those conversations turned into moments of connection I hadn't anticipated. They seemed to see through me, to notice the restless ache I thought I had hidden so well. One evening, Elise said something that struck me deeply. Sometimes testing your limits is the only way to know who you really are. The words clung to me like a shadow. I should have turned away then. I should have recognized the slippery slope I was standing on. But curiosity is a powerful force, and temptation has a way of dressing itself up as self-discovery. One night, after weeks of battling with my thoughts, I made a decision that would alter everything. I invited them over. I told myself it was harmless, just friends sharing an evening. But in my heart, I knew I was opening a door that should have stayed shut. I told Michael I was having friends over for drinks. He agreed easily, trusting as always, and went to bed early after a long day at work. When Adam and Elise arrived, the air seemed to shift. It was charged, heavy with unspoken possibilities. We talked, laughed, and shared stories, just as we always did. But beneath the surface, there was something else, an electricity I couldn't ignore. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. My pulse raced, my thoughts blurred, and in that moment, it felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. I wanted to test my limits. So, I invited them not just into my home, but into my world, into the fragile space of my marriage and my identity. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and secrecy. I tried to act normal around Michael, but guilt seeped into everything I did. He'd smile at me across the breakfast table, and I'd feel a sharp pain in my chest. He trusted me completely, and I was betraying that trust in the worst way possible. Yet, the more guilty I felt, the more entangled I became with Adam and Elise. It was like being caught in a storm. You know you should run for shelter, but part of you is mesmerized by the lightning. One afternoon, Jenna called me. She had noticed something was off. "Care," she said gently. "Are you okay? You seem different." I brushed it off, insisting I was just stressed from work. But deep down, I knew she was right. I was different. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. One evening, Michael came home early from work. He walked into the living room and found me with Adam and Elise. Nothing inappropriate was happening in that moment. We were just sitting together, but the look on his face told me he knew. He didn't need to see more. His eyes were filled with hurt, confusion, and a betrayal so deep it cut me to the core. "Caroline," he said, his voice trembling, "what's going on here?" I froze. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. In that moment, every choice I had made, every secret I had kept, came crashing down around me. I tried to explain, to stumble through words about curiosity and limits, but the truth was ugly and raw. I had invited chaos into our marriage, and now I was watching it tear us apart. Michael left that night. He didn't slam the door or raise his voice. He just walked out, carrying the weight of my betrayal with him. The silence he left behind was deafening. In the weeks that followed, I was forced to face the wreckage of my choices. Adam and Elise faded from my life. They had been a spark, a whirlwind, but not something lasting. What remained was the broken pieces of my marriage and the hollow echo of my own decisions. I spent countless nights replaying everything in my head, asking myself why. Why wasn't I content with the life I had? Why did I need to test limits that should have remained untouched? The answers didn't come easily. But slowly, painfully, I began to realize that I had been searching for something external to fill a void that only I could face. It wasn't about Michael or Adam and Elise. It was about me, my restlessness, my fear of stagnation, my hunger for something more without understanding what that more really was. Michael and I separated for several months. It was the hardest time of my life. I tried to reach out, to apologize, to explain, but I knew I couldn't rush his healing. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight. During that time apart, I went to therapy. I peeled back the layers of my choices, confronting truths I had long avoided.